And we're live. Hi, everybody. Welcome to a Branch of Laurels interview. My name is Shaxi. I am a member of the Order of the Laurel from the Kingdom of Antir. And tonight, my guest is also from the Kingdom of Antir. His name is Matthias Bane, and he's all the things.
And some of the things.
Most of the things.
I am most of the things. I'll put it that. I'll go with that.
Well, you're not a mod, so
I'm not a master defense.
Yet.
Or a duke or a lion. There's a bunch of things I'm not.
Okay. But what's more important is the things that you are. You're a Laurel, you're a Pelican, you're a Viscount, you're a Knight, former champion of ANS, and a Grey Goose Shaft, which is Antir's archery recognition award. It's a grant level, but it's the highest
level polling order, which is unique to Antir, yeah.
So anyway, hi.
Hi, nice seeing you.
It's nice to see you too. We usually start these off with your origin story. How did you find the SCA, and what made you fall in love with it?
Yeah, I found it pretty late to some people. Some people find it when they're kids. I was in college in Missouri, in Springfield, Missouri, and I was out mountain biking with some friends. So this was like my third year of college, so it was, 20. And we were mountain biking in a park, just some random park, me and a few friends, and we get done with a ride, and I look over and there's 6 or 7 people hitting each other in the face, and I'm like, I have to go find out what those people are doing. And all my friends are like, are you kidding me? I'm like, no, I am not kidding you. And I was driving, luckily, so like, you're all gonna wait, I'm gonna go find out what's going on with this. So I went over and met, and they were just there for a lark, it wasn't their normal place, whatever. And there was this gentleman by the name of Garley, who since passed away, but nicest man on the planet, which I think is one of the big reasons I got hooked, because he was just so welcoming and so like interested in what I was interested in. You know what I mean? Like, he just wanted to answer questions. He was one of those guys, super nice. And he just latched onto me and was like, hey, what do you want to know? And I had tons of questions, and we just chit chatted, and he let me know where their normal practice is. And I met a few people, whatever, but it was really that one person that really hooked me, because he was just such a, and the activity is outrageous and interesting, but activities are fun, but if they're not filled with nice people, I don't want to do the activity, right? There's plenty of cool things I've done in my past I don't do anymore because I've lost the people, not because I lost the interest in the activity. But either way, he told me where the practices were, so luckily it wasn't too far away from where I was going to school. So I could just ride my bike over there and started going to practices, their normal weekly practice, and learning what they did, and started making my own stuff. And it was close to the end of the year, so then I had the summer free. I was working, but I had a lot more free time in the summer, and so I went to a few events and I bought some stuff, and stuff I couldn't make. And I think it was like 4 months from finding the SCA to being in my own armor. And they didn't have any loaner gear, so it was the only way I was fighting was to get my own stuff. So it took about 4 months.
And they had loaner gear. You're a big guy.
It's a good point. It's right. So and it was a little shire. Oakhart is the name of the shire in Callantyre. And then I befriended a couple people, really got to know a couple people really well, and so that kept me coming back. And so I did that while I finished up school, and then I moved out here a couple years later, and then lovely thing about the SCA is it's always where you go, right? So I was down in Eugene, in Adiantum when I moved out here. And it took me a little while to find my place there. It was, once again, it's about people with me, and I met a lot of acquaintances there, but I didn't really find a really close friend for a while. So I struggled a bit with, I would do a little and then I'd sort of step back. I was a little fringy for a couple years because I just wasn't finding my clique, my friends.
Your niche. What made you move to Oregon?
To not be in Missouri. So that, really, I loved the school I was at. I hated the city. I hated the place, but I loved the school. I grew up in Chicago, and then I went to the school, but I hated the city. Um, and then I was going. I was looking for a place with a better climate that um, was a little more liberal, wasn't so hard conservative, wasn't so racist, to put it bluntly. It was a pretty rough place in the time I was there that I didn't appreciate. So I wanted just less. I wanted to be in a place that fit me more. And so the West Coast was really where it at. And I was thinking about going to graduate school at some time. So Eugene had the school, and I didn't end up actually ever going to that school. I ended up going to school in Edinburgh, Scotland instead, which was way better than Eugene. But either way, Eugene was a great place to move after college. It was bigger city than I was at, but it wasn't like the big city. So it was a good place to start my career. And it was a good place for the SEA too. It took me a while to find the people. It actually took me hurting myself. I blew out my back, and I was laid up for post-surgery stuff. And I just made a commitment. Like, I really enjoy that activity. I need to just double down, start going. I'll make friends if I go, if I really like commit to going. So I commissioned a tent while I was laid up. I like bought a bunch of stuff, and because I was like, bubble tent before that, and like I really like said, hey, if I'm gonna do it, let's do it. And then when I came back, I went whole hog back, and of course, and then it didn't take long to really find people and find my friends, and as it turns out, find my wife, right? Find all the people that became part of my world, right? But it was really in that sort of year of me just saying, it doesn't matter, just go. If you go, camp by yourself if you have to, you'll meet people, and I did. But
and this is like late 90s.
This was 90. I moved out in 95, so I started in 93 in Calontir. I moved out to Ontario in 95, and then it was like 98 or so is when I finally said, let's just make it part of my life. So I said I was in and out for 2-3 years, where I'd show up to practice a lot, but I didn't go to a lot of events, and
And
events
so
are a little daunting when you don't have a crew,
Totally.
You know what I mean? Like, so that was the thing that was stopping. I'd go to practice a lot, so I had local acquaintances, but the local people really weren't my crew. They were all nice people, but they just weren't the people that were really ended up being my close friends. I mean, I'm still friendly with most of them, that are still around. But
so when you say practice, you mean fight practice?
Yeah, fighting was really what started me, for sure, wholeheartedly what started me in the SCA. I mean, my first event, I had one tunic. I fought in that tunic, and I wore that tunic. That's what I had. You know what I mean? Like that kind of like really rough, and I had no support, so I had to make my own clothes. I had to make my own leather work. I made my own armor. And it was all pretty rough. So I've always liked making things, but that was a byproduct of wanting to fight and be there. And then I think after I sort of found my place and found my crew and was a little more active, then I really started flexing my creative muscles and like, what else can I build? What more can I have? How can I, trick out my stuff more and get more? How do I make stuff that people haven't seen before? But and I think until you really have that foundation of support, it's hard to get into that kind of stuff, right? At least for me, it is.
Yeah, for sure. Who was kind of your inspiration at this point? As you're finding your crew, did you latch onto any peers or any people in particular that kind of?
No, I latched on to Megan. Or she latched onto me. I'm not sure how. It depends on who's telling the story. I was pretty lone wolf. I had a really close friend in Calontir who, this is strange, his whole business was chainmail. So like he's the guy that he really introduced me to chainmail. He had a company called DC Wireworks. It was actually one of the big companies for many years. that like sold rings online and whatever. But it was just all butted stuff. But either way, but he loved making it. He was always fiddling with it. So, but he was my really good friend there. And when I moved out, said I really didn't have that. So I was just sort of lone wolf guy. I get along with people, so I had lots of acquaintances. I'd always enjoyed myself, but nobody really close. And even how Celeste and I became a couple was a random. I was fighting. I was committed to fighting. I was committed to SCA, and I wanted to fight in Coronet, and I didn't have a consort, and so I had to find someone to fight for, right? And I wasn't dating anybody, so I'm like, I just need a friend. And I was struggling with, okay, who is that? Because I don't really have anybody that's close right now. Everyone's very acquaintancy. And I was supposed to go to a Crown event. Everyone knew I was going to go. I'd gone to some social night or something. So people knew I was planning on going. And I was going to camp with it was a Crown event. So like Adianta was going to camp together. So I'm like, yeah, I'll camp with everybody. But my truck broke down before I left. And so I didn't go. And I went and bought a new truck that weekend, and like I just said, I need a truck I can depend on. So anyway, I just sort of didn't go, didn't tell anybody I wasn't going. And on Sunday, I get a phone call from Megan saying, hey, you didn't show up. I wanted to make sure you're okay. And I thought, oh, that's really sweet. Like that. And I hadn't really, I was such a sort of loner that I didn't even contemplate that people would have noticed that I didn't show up, right?
Yeah.
Not that I don't mean that in like a mean, I'm depressed sort of way, but it just like, whatever. Like I'm there, I'm not there, like whatever. And so it touched me, and I thought, okay, maybe I'll ask her. And so I asked her, and there you go, right? I mean, we went in one Coronet, and we got to the finals and lost, and then we did the second Coronet, and we won, and then all of a sudden we were spending a huge amount of time together, right? We did, in the 39 weeks from winning to stepping down, we were at something together 34 weekends, right? Like we just went, like, if we're going to do it, let's do it. And we went crazy. We went down to Caid, we went to the West, we were up in Avacall, we were, like in Thierry, which was, we went everywhere.
That's awesome.
But same, which means we were spending tons of time together. And before we even stepped up, so in that 3 months of sort of prep time is when we started dating, because we were just like spending time together, and then we're like, "Ooh, this is fun. Let's try something different." And then and then we've been together ever since. But so I think that she was really my first good friend on tier, that I really was close with. And then obviously really close with. So,
And you guys still collaborate on
tons of stuff. Most of the stuff people know me for, like particularly like the big structure stuff, and even some of the little projects, there's almost always an aspect of it that she's worked on. So one of the things that made me fall in love with her is that sort of creative energy, back and forth, critical but not personal, give and take of creation, right? Because there's a certain ego that you need to put aside when you're in that mode, when you're critiquing and you're giving feedback and shutting things down and opening things up, when you're collaborating, that not everyone likes, or let alone is good at, right? And she was good at it, and it didn't take it personally, and enjoyed it, right? So, and saying there's nothing still more fun than a 3-hour drive back from some event where we're planning something and we're just sitting in the car talking about, what about this and what about that? Oh, wait, we could do that. Oh yeah, I didn't really think. What about that? Like, and just riffing off each other for hours. Like I still love doing that. And that's why some of the things that we've made are good, because it's saying you spend the time really shaking the design and
hashing it out,
shit to fall out, and making sure what's left is really good.
Yeah. That's something I've always been a little envious of with you two. My husband and I cannot work together creatively. It's like
there's some professional people I can't work with. It's a tough sort of divorcing of, ego and ideas and relationship, and sort of putting that aside for a second. That my schooling, that was like my whole training. That was architect by training, and that's what school is. It's just, if you can't divorce yourself from your idea, you will get destroyed emotionally. right? I mean, like,
Yeah.
it is a harsh environment. And so like that's the way I work when I'm being creative. And if I can't work with people that are too married to an idea, because an idea is great, but it could also suck.
Right.
And that has nothing to do with the person who has said idea, right? That it's the idea by itself. And so she does that really, really well, which I
She
like.
does. I miss sewing with her. I miss working with her in the studio. She's a very special human being.
I agree. The most special, I would say.
Well,
Human being.
yes.
But,
So at what point did you start doing archery in all of this?
it was when I blew my back out. When I was saying, when I had that moment where I was down for my back surgery the first time, when I said, hey, I'm coming back. What can I do? What does the SA offer me? And what can I do with the body I have right now? And like, ooh, I can do archery. That sounds like a lot of fun. You know, I mean, I had shot some arrows as a kid or camp or Boy Scouts or whatever, you know, but I mean, nothing, whatever. But I always thought it was cool. So I just jumped right in when I was still recovering before I started fighting heavy again. So I was in it really heavy. And then so I did that a lot, and then I recovered, and then heavy fighting was my focus for a while. And then it was, I don't know, a month after we stepped down, I blew out my back again, because that rain, I did not really give myself as much time to heal before that rain. And then I pushed it during that rain.
Yeah.
And I can remember 6 or 7 events where I couldn't get up off the ground after fighting. I mean, like, my back was so torched that I couldn't move or couldn't roll over. Like, I mean, like, it was really bad. So I blew my back out again because I was young and an idiot. And when I was recovering from that, when I in the recovery after the surgery, I got back into archery because I love the SCA. I mean, at that point, I loved the SCA, and I'm like, if I can't fight, I'm going to do something different, and I'm still going to be around because there's so much to do. So I did a lot more fencing, did a lot more archery. That's when I got the OGGS. And that's when I was like rapier champion for the summits. And like, I mean, I just went in to do other stuff for a while. And that's actually when I started, during that second recovery, is really when I started taking research and artistry more serious as well. I mean, I was always making stuff, but it was SCA cool. It was functionally interesting SCA cool stuff. Like, I need a chair, make a chair. I need a thing. Like, and you make it period-ish, right? You know, make it fit. But like, I wasn't really interested in the research side. But during that second recovery time is when I really started saying, okay, if I'm gonna make something, take the time, back up, do your research, and then do it right. Why not take the time? And at that time, all I had was time, right? I mean, from my point of view, like, I have plenty of time. So research and figure something out. And that's when I started doing chainmail again. And I'm like, hey, if I'm gonna do chainmail, it's not gonna be butted. Like, you know, a friend of mine taught me, how do I do it right? How do I do it properly? And then I started researching and then making my own tools, and I have to figure that out. How do you make the tools? And then coming up with different versions of tools. I mean, I think I worked on tools for a year where I probably kicked out, you know, maybe 15 square inches of mail, you know, because I would just like make tools and make little patches, and like, I don't like how that works. And then remake the tool and then make a little patch, and like, okay, that's a little better. And how can I shave off a second here? How can I tweak a little bit there? How do I make this more ergonomic? How do I not make this hurt? And so I went through about 3 versions of my tools, and then I started doing more product and doing more research at the same time. That's when like the whole archery testing project thing came across, which is these guys. That's what these arrows were from this big, you know. So when I was doing the research of mail, there's this big argument about what can mail do or not do, armor, you know, protection wise.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm like, well, I can answer that. Make a bunch of different pieces of armor and shoot shit at it, you know, and see what happens. That's an easy thing to answer, right? Because there's a lot of people like, mail can deflect everything, and the people are like, mail doesn't do anything, and I'm like, okay, you both can't be right. Let's do a project. So that turned into this huge piece of research that, you know, was a lot of fun to do, but, you know, I mean, that took a long time. That was one of my arts and science entries. But I'm saying that all started when I was convalescing, because I had time and energy and didn't know where to put it. So, and couldn't put it into fighting. So
let's look at some pictures if we can get the share screen to work. Let's see. Okay.
There you go.
We'll go back to the first picture I have.
Super. Yeah, that I think is right when I decided I'm in, and May the 10th just started showing up and started doing some archery and yeah. So these are all the people that were on the range, all my sort of archery friends at the time. Yeah, and I really enjoyed shooting then. I think that, that was another thing that really, while I was sort of convalescing, that really hooked me on the SCA, was having a place to go and, always people there and you could just hang out. So, yeah. And that's Megan and I after we stepped up. So this is, like 2001. Yeah. Same thing, lots of.
This is you.
That's me, yep, hanging out, going to everything.
And then here you are, ANS champ.
Yeah, so that's post getting laureled. So I reigned 2001, I was laureled in 2004. So saying there was a few, like I said, I broke my back again right after I reigned, so I sort of disappeared for a bit. And then came back and started doing much more research. And then this was 2004 or 2005, probably, when I was champion. Yeah. And
then we're going back in time to your reign.
Yep.
What was your favorite thing?
Surprisingly, this is when my clothes got a lot better, because I had a in-house person who knew how to make stuff.
Costuming goddess.
So this is right when I stopped making clothes, which was awesome because she's so much better at it than me, or many other people for that matter. Right? So,
what was your favorite thing about reigning?
My favorite thing was walking around after court. We had this thing where we didn't want to disappear. So we do our court, and then we would go get something to eat, and then we would just go walk around and go camp to camp. And some of it's small enough that you can more or less hit the whole event. And we would just pop in and hang out with people around their fire, chit chat a while, and move on. But I really loved that. It really, like, people were always super excited. Like, the prince and princess are here, and oh, I got a song I want to play, and like whatever. And they just got so excited, and it was just such a nice way to like add something to their little fire revel in their evening that really touched me. Like, court is nice and it's fun, but it's a lot of work and whatever. But those little traveling things were, I really enjoyed them. They were fun. They were totally authentic and casual, and people weren't putting on a show. People weren't trying to show off for their friends. Like, it was just honest. And I think we made people's events better, right? So I really loved that.
Awesome.
I mean, and also to put it into context, it was, our whole reign was post, we stepped up in, what is it, June, and then 9/11 happened in September, right? So 9/11 happened right in the middle of our reign, right? So like the world sort of got really weird during our reign, and like people were really like stressed and looking for a place to go to be, happy and carefree and forget about the real world that was scary. And so saying those moments with people that were carefree and not thinking about the world, I think were really beneficial. I think this was the last event I was at as Prince before, the last event before we stepped down. Which is embarrassing, and I'll actually even out myself. I am, yes, everyone, holding a Madu. I know.
Madus are cool.
I played with one for a while, and they are fun, but so not period. But I got better. That's all I can say. is I grew and I got better and I stopped using it.
I love this picture of you two.
Yeah, this is Sport of Kings a few times ago. Yeah, and it was fun.
So we're kind of skipping around time wise. So
Yeah, that was just like 3 years ago.
yeah, so I'm going to stop sharing and we're going to come back to the more recent photos. So you entered your back again. You started doing arty stuff. You got Laurels. You won Kingdom
which is a
A&S.
story all by itself.
Right.
I can launch into that. So yeah, I was not apprenticed to anybody. I was not really friends with anybody except for Megan, of course. But I mean, like, that I really talked about Laurel stuff with, you know what I mean? I understood that they were a thing. I mean, obviously with Megan or whatever. Even when I was Prince, I did not sit on the councils.
Really?
Because, yeah, I felt very strongly about that. Megan was a Laurel. She could represent the coronet. I did not need to represent. I mean, she's a smart lady and knows how to, represent our desire and stuff. And if she needed my advice, she'd ask for it. So I didn't go to him. So I had very little like window into what Laurel was. I mean, other than the sort of outward picture. But I just enjoyed making and researching and doing stuff. And so my understanding is I got brought up at Kingdom as like, hey, there's this dude doing stuff. And everyone's like, oh yeah, that's cool. But like, that was it. And then I got brought up at a Summits event when Uther was king. And it was one of the Summits at the time did these all peerage meetings. So they were all, all the groups. And so it was like 25 people, but it was not a lot of Laurels. And everyone's like, yeah, he's doing great stuff. This is what he's doing. He's doing this, he's doing that, he's doing this other thing, whatever. And Uther's like, done. Awesome. And they're like, you don't want to bring him up in Kingdom? He goes, is this not the Kingdom? I'm getting all this, after the fact. And so they're like, yeah, it is, Your Majesty. So like, done. And so they put me on vigil at 11th night for Summits, which is in December, for 12th night, which is in January. And I was like middle of some projects, and like there's some pieces I hadn't even shown people yet. And so I was like, crap. Oh, so I better get stuff done. And then I heard a lot of Laurels were angry about the process. Sort of, it was not the traditional on-tier way, the way it was done. And that ruffled a few of the feathers, as it were. And I was hearing through the grapevine a lot of negative press. And so that concerned me, right? Because I don't want to, that's awesome. I want to step up as a Laurel and then everyone's going to be pissed at me. So I said, I know what I'll do. I'll enter Kingdom Arts and Science. And I have to declare at 12th night. So I have 5 weeks to like figure everything out. Luckily, my research project was virtually done. But I had a couple projects I was working on. So I just like jammed, and we had to submit 5 projects for Kingdom A&S at the time, right? So it was a big like, so I like just double, I took vacation time and like all I did was working on stuff. Because I'm like, if I do that, at least I'm giving a venue for people to see my work, right? Yeah. Right at the time people would be upset. To the point of when I showed up the 12th night and I had my vigil, I had all of my display material that I was going to have at Arts and Sciences presented in my vigil, which was good because I had a couple people come in, one person in particular, which I will not name because we still don't get along. And this is why, because this is how we met. He came into the room and he said, convince me you deserve to be a Laurel. Ugh. And I went, have you read anything on that table? And he said, no. I'm like, until you read everything on that table, I don't want to hear a word out of you. And I just got pissed. I was super pissed. And I'm like, fuck you, go over there and read it all, and then we can talk. But my job is to convince you. His Majesty said, I say yes. That's the way it goes.
Yeah.
And he did not like that answer, and he didn't go read my stuff, and we've been enemies ever since. Like literally, like we've been not friends for, it's whatever, 15 years now, whatever, 16 years. He's also not a pleasant human being, so that helps. But like that was and he was the most overt, but I had a lot of that kind of thing where people were much more polite about it, but they were fishing for information. So I was super glad I had the display. But it really, all of that, like, I don't know if I would have had the motivation to get all the stuff done I needed to get done for arts and science without that as a, like, I felt like I had to prove myself a bit. I had to get everything out there in a more public manner for the Laurels to feel like I wasn't just some, fiat
peer.
Exactly. Yeah. Right. Because that was a big fear of mine. And it was my first peerage. Right. So that was the other thing. Like, it was my first one. Like, it really concerned me, like, getting into it that way. Now, as it turns out, I entered Kingdom Arts and Science and I won. So that really helped. And there was 9 overall contestants. So it was a good showing. And I ended up winning. So that really helped squash all the negativity. So, like, right when that happened, then it was like I didn't get any of that weird vibe anymore. So that I was really glad I did it, but man, it was a lot of work. And yeah.
It's interesting because I don't remember any of that. I remember you coming up. I remember totally supporting you and being excited about your work. And I think
the people that knew me knew the stuff I was doing. I mean, so I don't necessarily begrudge the people that were confused, people that were farther away and really didn't knew what I was doing, which is why I'm like, okay, I need a venue to show what I've been doing, because I knew what I was doing was good, but and thorough and whatever. But I to be fair, I didn't put it out there. I mean, except for to the people that were in my close circles, people didn't know it. And so, I mean, I was glad I had that it timed out, that I had a good venue to really showcase what I was doing to help the people that really wanted to know. Now, obviously, some people were just wanted to be jerks and were jerks, right? And whatever, that's fine. I got thick skin, fair enough. Like, be a jerk, and we don't need to be friends. But yeah, it was a little stressful that few months. But I loved it. I mean, and I was happy how it turned out. And I mean, to the point of when I got knighted at Kingdom Arts and Science Championship event. I mean, like, I love that event. So it does mean a lot to me. So
I was having a baby when you got knighted, I think.
I think that might be right. Yeah.
What was I going to ask you? So how does that experience with your first peerage, how has that colored how you treat with your students and how you interact with people coming into the peerage and evaluating people for the peerage?
Yeah, I had sort of a weird thing where I was a Viscount first, right? Weird, not even a squire, just a Viscount. And then I was a Laurel. And then I was squired, and then I was knighted, and then I was pelican, right? So it was I had a weird order, right? And I've never had any students, apprentices as a Laurel. And I haven't been a pelican all that long. I mean, it's just been a couple years, so I don't have anything there either. So, like, all my students have been squires, right? So I didn't get that relationship until later, right? I mean, so really what becoming a Laurel helped me with was, becoming a Viscount helped me with, hey, people's eyes are on you. Like, be aware that strangers know who you are and you don't necessarily know who they are. And you need to treat them like you know who they are. I mean, as far as kindness and, right? Because once you're sort of out there in the public, so that's really what that taught me was,
gotta be nice.
I'm not private anymore. Like, there's a part of me that belongs to the community, and I have to be okay with that because I've been put up, and up there for everyone to see, and I'm fine with that. Becoming a Laurel really taught me how to deal with, or at least how to expect and process being campaigned to, being lobbied to, being almost trying to be worked by people to, like, because they want something out of you. That one took me off guard. No one really prepared me for that. Or people that were barely casual acquaintances one day, 2 weeks later, were all of a sudden my best bud and wanted to tell me everything they were doing, like research wise. And I'm like, oh, that's a little false, like, I mean, like, I'll listen to it, but like, do you realize that it makes you look really freaking shallow that all of a sudden now I'm your friend, so that took a little getting used to, where then I had to like question, are people being nice to me because they want to be nice to me, or people being nice to me because they want something out of me? And that took a little while for me to weather, and get used to, and sort of get that antenna tuned in to, the bullshit artists and the actual authentic people. But then it was really becoming a knight and taking on squires that's when really it was about oaths and my relationship with others and how that two-way street goes, and which I take super seriously.
So for people who don't know, who were you squire to?
I was squire to Sir Olin. So I didn't have a squire for a long time, and I was actually, this is post being a Viscount and whatever. People knew who I was fighting really well, but I was struggling with personalities and the sort of weird politics that gets into fighting sometimes. And Olin has an awesome ability to not give a crap about other people. At the same time, he's a sweetheart, right? But like, he really doesn't care. Like, if he thinks what he's doing is right, he doesn't care what other people think. And I love that about him.
Yeah.
And he really helped me through that, right? Because as you start getting better and better as a fighter, there's always those people like, oh, were you supposed to take that shot? Or what about this shot? Oh, you're getting too good for your station. And like all that weird, like political crap that goes right. And it was really swirling in my head, and I didn't have a good sounding board. Yeah, to like, man, is this right? Am I crazy? Do I need to pay attention to that? And I was struggling a bit. And so Kalja and Megan did a little back room deal making. and then Olin and I stayed up real late one night talking about what that relationship meant. Because that was also the other thing. I take oaths very seriously. It's not fake. An oath isn't fake. I don't care if this is a game. If I'm saying an oath in front of people about a thing I'm going to do, that is important to me, and I want to be true to that oath. And so like getting into that first sort of oath-bound relationship, I mean, I guess I was in an oath-bound relationship as a Viscount and a Laurel. That's a little different because you're sort of connected to this amorphous crown that isn't really a human being. It's an idea. And that's a much easier oath to be true to, but being true to a person is much more personal and means something to me. So I wanted to make sure and everyone has different versions of that, and I respect that, but the two people that enter into that relationship have to be on the same page. And we were, and that was great. And then 2 months after I became his squire, I moved to Scotland. So there was that. And then 2 months after I moved back, I got knighted. So we weren't really in that relationship for long, and in person, really not long. That being said, I called him, every couple of weeks in Scotland, and we talked about stuff and about fighting there. And he was nice because it was people I would bump into, and they'd ask who my knight was. And as it turns out, he did get contacted from people that I met out there. So it was good to have an advocate, somebody that could be sort of the collector of the stories I had out there from a different point of view. So I was glad I had it. But
so you're just kind of glossing over the fact that you guys got to play in Drakenwald. So
I did. No, that was super fun. Although Olin didn't do many favors, as it turns out. And it's nothing to do with being Laurel, but as it turns out, I was up to be knighted right before I left. And he said, no, he doesn't want to get knighted and then go to another kingdom. So he totally put the kibosh on it. So instead, I went to a kingdom as a hot squire and just ran over people as a squire and ruffled a bunch of feathers that way. Right? I mean, like because I was just a different thing than they were used to, like different stylistically. I was a big guy and like whatever. I play a rough game. They don't really do that. Like, so I was, heck, Olin was my knight. I really threw my weight around as he does. And which is another reason we got along well, right? So yeah, they just didn't know what to do with me there. So which turns out I impressed a bunch of people, which means that then they called people on tier and said, hey, I met this guy, he was really good. So that really helped for when I got back. They were like, all right, done.
Yeah.
And, I mean, it was the first event I was back. I got put on vigil.
Wow, that's
I mean,
exciting.
I've been back for like a month and a half, and I went to some practices, but I mean, I was setting up a new house and like trying to get my job situated. I was busy for that month. So it was like the first event I went to was a 12th night. They were like, blank, done. So yeah, that was fun.
And did you, because of your past experience with being Laurel, did you have any of those doubts? Did you have any of those worries?
I didn't. No, I didn't. I mean, I did a vigil for that one as well because it's just a different community. So I wanted, and my first vigil was a more spiteful vigil from my point of view. So the second vigil, I wanted a more celebratory vigil. And that one which was good. And then when I got Pelican, I told people, like, if I ever get anything else, I don't want any more vigils. Just a vigil now is just work. It's making me do more stuff. So the Pelican just happened, which was the nicest gift anyone could have given me, right? But not having a vigil, that is not getting a Pelican. That was nice too, don't get me wrong, but yeah, no, so that was a good vigil, but that one was much more celebratory. And I was only gone 14 months, so it's not like I was gone a really long time. So
it felt like forever.
No, indeed. But so when I came back, it's not like people were like, oh yeah, that guy, it was a pretty, hit pause and then get back and hit play again. And, it is what it is.
I think it also wasn't a high SCA turnover time.
Right.
Sometimes if you leave for 2 years, like you come back and it's all new people.
Yeah, no, it was all the same. I mean, it was, and I had kept in touch with people. And like I said, and people had reached out with, to the council and to Olin Straight about people I'd met there. I met some travelers from Anstiora there that we got really friendly. And there was some people from Ontier that were there. Sir Liam was living in Glasgow at the time. So he had connections. And so the time there, I think, did help because it wasn't like I went away. I mean, that council was hearing about me while I was gone. So.
And at that point, Facebook, MySpace
just started. I made my Facebook account when I was in Scotland.
Right.
Like before that, it was all MySpace.
Right.
The old days. So yeah, it was when I got there, I made an account, and then it's just started. I mean, I'm sure it was before that, but that's when I first got on it.
Yeah, but I think that helps make the world smaller in a lot of ways.
No, of course. Yeah.
Yeah. So, all right. So I think we're ready to go back and see some more recent photos now.
Sure.
Including stuff of your, some photos of your work. Okay. So I have to figure out where we were. So we haven't talked about your structures at all yet.
Yeah. So as I said earlier, I'm an architect, so I think about space a lot. My brain works about space. I'm dyslexic as well, which if people that don't understand how dyslexic brains work by imagining everything three-dimensionally, which is why they have problem with letters, because an E, whether it's upside down or backwards or forwards, is still an E and it's shaped three-dimensionally, right? That's why you get letters backwards. Weird little fact, but so my brain thinks in 3 dimensions all the time. I mean, I can draw the house I was 5 in right now. My mom can't do that, but I can. Like, I remember space, I think about space. So get into the SCA, and we have pavilions and stuff, but we don't really do space well. I mean, it's hard because we're transient. So really, these structures were a way of how can I make things feel more architectural? How do I create more space to have moments in, to live in, to have these transportive period feelings in? And so over the years, I've sketched and added to, and what I refer to as my adult Legos. I've sort of made these pieces that fit together in different ways and fit a certain module, and I can play with them and set them up in different ways and build different pieces. But like you can see, like in this picture, the wooden house is mine, although Megan did all the canvas on that. The day shade in front of that's mine. Megan did all the canvas on that. The wooden structure on that, that's mine. That's all that. All those banners for the most part are mine, but she did the banner, right? Like, it's like we're just into like, how do you define and create boundaries and three-dimensional volumes to be in the SCAN, right? So.
And so we're gonna hop around a little bit, but we're gonna come back to some of the just incredible photos of the incredible spaces that you've made.
I love that picture, by the way.
It's so great.
I miss On To Your West War.
So this is your squire and his husband presenting themselves for crown.
This is right before they became engaged. I think about 30 seconds before they got engaged. Yeah.
So.
Yeah, Finn was my second squire. Luciano was my first squire, but he has since been knighted. So now I just have two squires, Finn and Susanna. Those are my two squires.
And this is your full chainmail shirt.
This is a relatively recent picture because I've switched to the new shield. I had a big accident in my shop where I almost took my thumb off, which was not fun. And since then I had to switch my shield. So
this is a strap instead of like a center finish?
Exactly. I can't do center held anymore. My thumb doesn't like it. I mean, it still works and I have it. Yay, thumbs. But it center held's rough on the thumb. So yeah, I switched to this. But yeah, that's my new kit. And that's me getting pelicaned with my pelican hat. That's all business up front and party in the back.
It's got a little tail.
I know, let's say it, party in the back, right.
That's awesome. And that's just you. Oh no, you're carrying the orb.
Yeah, I forget what event I was carrying that in, but yeah, I've carried some of the regalia. I'm currently the Kingdom Regalia Chamberlain. So I do a lot with regalia these days, managing new projects and getting stuff fixed and all that fun stuff.
So when I pulled this picture, I assumed that you were processing in with the orb during a coronation. Is that not what's happening?
I think that's right. I think this is processing in at July coronation, right before Kingdom Championship tourney, which is, you can see the board in the back. I think this is the one up in Tier E. We had the one where Steercar stepped down, and the cathedral was set up, and you can see the banners behind me. Those are my banners making public space, because once again, you got to make space. So yeah, so that's July coronation in Canada.
So I think it's one of my favorite on-tour traditions is how the orb rod and scepter are brought in as part of the coronation ceremony. And generally the person bringing in the orb is a representative of the arts community, for people that don't know.
I love that as well, to the point of, as Chamberlain of Regalia, I've been taking like studio photographs of everything, and I'm trying to get a website created to add to the Kingdom website that's just about the regalia that's part of coronation. So the orb, the rod, the scepter, which we have a new rod now, which most people haven't seen.
Eee.
We have a new scepter that's almost done. We have the new orb. And then the seal, the Great Seal is another one that people never see, but it's part of the ceremony as well. So I have really good pictures of those. So I said, I really want to create a site that talks about the history of them, who made them, and all that fun stuff, but also just getting the imagery out so people understand what that is and what it represents, you know?
Well, you know, I share that passion, so I would be happy to like help you with, you know, editing or whatever.
I'm really, I'm just waiting for Steercar to get done with the scepter, right? Because I want it to be like the whole set, and that's the last piece to get done, was the remake of the scepter after it got lost. Because right now the scepter is just the ball and a stick.
Yeah, that one's lame.
I wouldn't say that, but it's not good, right?
It's not lame. It's
lame. Yeah. Right. I mean,
We love
So
it because it's traditional, but
now that being said, all of the new ones have pieces of the old ones in them.
in them, yeah.
So all three of them, we've kept the core of the original, because they're the original Coronation #1. They were all there. And so that was very important to me that all of them had a little throughput of that mojo into the next
Because
20 years of,
the orb basically just has fancy dress now, right?
yeah, same thing with the rod. Like Sir Torfa made a new handle and new pieces that sort of cup the ball at the end, but you can still see the core of what it was. And then the scepter, he's actually chopping it up and like using pieces on the new scepter. So it's going to be, because the new scepter's 4 times the size of the old one. You know, I mean, it's way bigger. But either way, they'll all have some of that throughput, which is really important to me. So this is that same event. This was the step down. This is the first time I did the back wall in the cathedral. And that back wall I made for Francis's vigil in a hotel room. But since I was making them, I also made it to fit the module of my adult Legos. So this is the same thing. Like, if you're going to make pieces, make them as useful as humanly possible, so you can use them over and over again. But this is the first time I had set them up as part of the cathedral, and I was really pleased how it turned out.
It's just gorgeous. And you kind of do endless configurations. I mean, it always seems like it's always a little different.
Yeah, I have it all, I mean, to be a dork, but I have it all 3D modeled in my software that I do. So I can just take the pieces and move them around and play, and then figure out what's missing. If I come up with some new idea how it comes together and I'm missing some bit of canvas, and I can go to Megan and be like, hey, can you make me another piece of canvas? And she'll roll her eyes and say, okay. And then she'll make me another piece or whatever. But yeah, that's what Legos are all about. It's not one way to set them up. There's hundreds of ways to set them up. Yeah.
So you can see the close up. How did you do this lattice work?
It was a jig with a plunge router. So I made a master jig, and then laid them up, the pieces in the jig, and then go through every shape with the router, and then put the next panel on into every shape, and then do the next
And
panel.
do you do it both sides, or do you just have one side flat and one side kind of 3D?
Well, I mean, since the trim that gives it the 3 dimensions is all applied, so the plywood, I just cut straight all the way through the plywood, and then added trim to the front and the back after it was cut. So there was like cut them into panels, cut out the shapes, do all the trim, and then assemble them into pieces. You know, they're hinged, so they're like a dressing, screen. You know, I mean, like, you can kind of fold them, so that you're not, they stay together a bit, but they're still manageable to carry once you fold them up.
Right.
They are pretty. I mean, they are 8 feet tall, so they're pretty big.
Pretty heavy.
They're not too bad, actually, because it's saying they're really thin. Yeah, and then this one was another space one. Sport of Kings always had this big grand court, and court was just like on the Eric. And courts in the SCA are always sort of just like in a field or in a pavilion, but everybody's in a field. Like, it never feels like you're in a space. So this was an attempt of, how can I add another structure to the front of the cathedral? So the cathedral's great, it works for court great, that's awesome. But how do I give the populace a room to be in, to feel like they're part of the same building as court? And so this was a structure that we nicknamed the Basilica, because it's bigger than a cathedral, that we made really just for Sport of Kings. And it's been up for Sport of Kings a few times. It's been up for a July coronation. And that's really it. So it's only been up like 4 times. But obviously all the fabric work was Megan, and then all the structure and the design was myself.
And just so that everybody knows, who packs, transports, unpacks, sets up, breaks down these structures?
Yeah, that's Megan and me, and friends. I mean, it does take a handful of people in a couple of steps to sort of tilt it up, because it's sort of like a big set of dominoes. But it's usually 4 or 5 of us putting it up, and then usually 2 or 3 of us taking it down. But this is my own personal thing. Megan and mine's. And
It's
so
such a huge service to the kingdom.
it's what I'm saying, but it gives me there's nothing more fun than making a space. Like I just love making space. It gives me such giggles to see and to play around in.
And this, when I don't think I pulled a picture of it at night, but this at night lit up.
I sent you one. I don't know if it's in this mix, but I did send you one with the
Okay, it should be
lantern.
then.
Yeah, no, I really love it when it's set up. Yeah, so lighting is another big thing. Like if you're gonna have a space and you're gonna be there at night, you gotta light it right. So,
Yeah. Right. Well, let's go through some of these other ones that I pulled because we needed some fighting shots of you
Yeah, that's yay fighting. I love fighting.
and some
And I like
candid.
smiling.
And
this is Susanna, one of my squires, great artist in her own right and a great fighter in her own right as well.
I was gonna say she's my favorite of your squires, but that's not true. I can't really pick one.
They're both really awesome, and they're both of my same opinion of the world, which is everything is fun. I mean, they both are they're service oriented. They make stuff. They like to fight. They're just all around great people.
They are.
But they understand that SCA isn't just about fighting. It's about everything, and they embrace that. This is actually the space we made for Finn's vigil to become a pelican. My squire Finn. So
Awesome. And I think I put in a bunch of shots. This is you fighting Sven.
Crown tournament. Yeah, that's the final 6 of Crown, and Sven beat me, the big jerk. Yeah, that was one of the better crowns I did.
And I think these shots are, there's a night.
Hunter West War, yeah. Yeah.
And I pulled this one because we're in the same place together.
There you go. Yeah, you're in the background. Nice.
So rare.
Yeah, this is a Sport of Kings. Yeah, because I can tell because of the dagging and the flags and stuff.
Yeah, and this was this past last year.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I just day tripped that one, which is sad because Megan was having surgery. So.
Yeah. And there you're teaching.
I was teaching my philosophy class. Yeah.
And I apparently
wearing the same tunic. You can tell there's a lot of pictures of me because I love this tunic. So I've been wearing it like crazy lately. And my 2 squires. That's a great picture of all 3 of us.
Who wove the trim on that tunic you're wearing?
I got it as a prize for Sport of Kings, and her name is, I don't remember. She lives up north. She lives in Seattle. Megan would remember. I forget.
It's stunning.
I know, it's lovely. And the same, she made the tunic around the trim. I mean, we got the trim. You're like, what kind of tunic can we make for that trim and use every square inch of it? So
fabulous.
This was Luciano's knighting, and so we made these front panels. This is sort of zoomed in, but I made new panels to go on the cathedral to make it look like the Doge's palace because he's Venetian. Because, hey, Doge has got to have his palace. So that was fun. We kicked that out in like 2 weeks, those panels, which is just, once again, built up plywood. Is really easy.
And this is his knighting.
Yeah.
With his wife and your wife?
There, yep, married, yep. Tessenia.
And Kalja has piped in and says that Madrin made the trim.
Thank you. Space in the name. I knew the weavers all stick together.
Thank you, Kalja. And I love the shot of you too. It's so cute.
Yeah, perfect period feast. Yeah. Megan, once again, just ripped out those outfits in like 2 weeks. Those 2 outfits. Like, just when she is in her mode, get out of her way. It's amazing. Yep, that's the whole family before one of them became bound to the king. So that's the last time I had 3 squires.
And then all your regalia and a close up.
I'm wearing right now. Yeah. Master Vrin made the Pelican medallion, and Sir Torfin made the Laurel medallion, and I made the Knight's Chain.
Awesome.
Yeah. But yeah, 2 of my favorite artists. So I'm very proud to be wearing some of their stuff.
So there you're taking her as a squire.
Yep. A simple oath, but I'm a big fan of a public oath. I mean, it's in our camp, so it's not like court oath. I'm not a big fan of that.
No.
But in front of friends and family, of speaking the words and having it witnessed is a important thing for me.
Because they're going to be her support system too, right?
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
So I think that's really important.
Yeah. And everyone loves her because why not? She's great.
Oh, and I think I included this because I swore fealty on you.
There you go. Nice.
Because I must have been a little tired when I was.
That's fine. That was Steercar stepping down. I was his head of retinue for that reign. And boy, howdy, was that a lot of work.
Hard job.
It's a hard job. And he is an energetic human being.
Yeah.
So I had a lot of fun, but man, that was a tough event. I was zonked by the end of it. Yeah. Yeah, this was a 12th night here in Three Mountains, actually, when Maroon was knighted. This was her just been smacked in the face. Yeah.
So this is your grand knight.
Yep.
And
all of his family.
Your knight's forehead.
That's Olin's being, coy in the background. Yep.
And so Alfred's squires are Octamisades,
Laurencio, Maroon, Fiac,
Olin, Freddie.
Yep. And Ishvan. Yep.
And Ishvan.
Yep. And we just sort of adopted, as a family, we adopted Einar, and so we ended up adopting Justin, who was Einar's squire.
Okay. So
he was never actually oathed to anybody, but we just saw the stray and picked him up.
So this is sort of a close-up of some of your chain work.
Yeah, that's my helmet. And so that I did all the mail for that, and quite a bit of the design of the helmet. I mean, working with Ugo and Vrin, but I had a lot of documentation of the pieces that I was interested in. It's based off a helmet that's on a statue on Wells Cathedral, and Matthew Paris's has a book of lots of drawings in it. As an illustrator from the 1300s, and there's a really famous one of a Norman knight in mail sort of praying, and there's like a little cherub above him holding his helmet, and so it's like that helmet and the one on Wells Cathedral, like those are the two biggest inspirations. So I did all the research for them, and then laid it out and sort of gave them my do's and don'ts. And there's some like a bunch of technical details in the helmet that I really pushed. Like you can see that the mail, you don't see how the mail's attached to the helmet.
Right.
That's a detail I really had to push the makers to do, which is there's a false back plate that protects the back of my neck, but it's offset from the main helmet by 1/4 of an inch to allow the mail to slip between the two plates, and get the connection up into the helmet so it looks really like a coif under a helmet. That was a really important illusion I wanted to do. And when you see, the attachments leather or something like that, it's not the same thing, right?
Right.
So it was a great collaboration working with both of them on that helmet, because it's the only way it really could meet the vision I had of it, was to get some of those details worked out. So
right. You have such an incredible eye for design.
Well, those two do as well. So then I really enjoyed the collaboration on that one. This was the piece I was working on frantically for 12th night when I got laureled. So I had just started it when I got put on vigil, and I wanted it done. In fact, I wore it during my laurel ceremony. Like I wore it full on, and then I flipped it back over my head during the ceremony, but I processed in with it on. But it was one of the pieces I entered in the championship. But that was fun. A lot of research into that one as well. And then I've done a bunch of work. This is my Squire Finn's helmet. I've done a bunch of work where, the piece that you were just on took about 175 hours, something like that. Same thing. I mean, the one I for my helmet was probably more like 100, because it's not as much rings. obviously I can't do that for every piece. It would just take forever. So these next few helmets are the ones you'll see. I ended up getting a relationship with a mail maker in India that makes mail that's very similar to mine. And then I get bulk pieces that I can slice them up, retailer them, trim them, fit them, and mount them to helmets and line them and all that stuff. So it cuts my time down to, 10, 20 hours on a piece, not 100. I mean, it's so these are about 10 to 20% my work. So it's a weird mix, but it was a good way to get a lot of helmets out in the world.
Yeah. There we go.
Yeah, so this was Francis when he was apprenticed to Megan. So part of the family, when he was being put on vigil, I said, "Hey, Francis, hotel vigils, man, what are you going to do with them? Like, I have this vision of how do we make hotel vigils be transportive? Because they end up being these sort of SCA con vigils, right?
Right.
And so I did some sketches, and he's like, "Are you serious? You're gonna make a fireplace?" I'm like, "Yes, like a fireplace. I'm gonna make panels. We're gonna put furniture in it and rugs, and we're gonna make a period lighting." And he's like, "Knock yourself out." So this is what we came up with.
So amazing.
That was super fun.
And then so these are like screens. They're 4 per screen, and they're hinged, and they are the same thing that was on the back of the.
Yep, exactly. Yeah. And so when I was designing this for him, then at the same time, like, hey, if I'm designing new pieces, let's design it with the rules to be in the new pieces and do the job that I needed to do now, so that I'm not just building these for Francis, I'm building them for him, but also for future projects to be determined, right? So.
And you guys made like fake Disney fire.
We did. Yeah.
So cool.
I've since actually got flickering lights for it that are way better. That was a fixed light, which wasn't as good, but keep upping it. We're actually, Istvan just bought Sir Istvan, a vapor fire that's water vapor and LED lights that actually looks like flame. So
wow.
We're trying to push it forward any we can, because indoor events are still events, and we should have moments that transport us into the past. Sure. Ideally. So these were the kingdom when Sir Torfin made the new crowns, and I was on the committee for that, the selection committee. I'm like, oh, they need new boxes. The old boxes are great boxes, but they didn't fit the crowns really snugly, and so they let the crowns sort of bounce around in the box a bit. So these, you don't see them when they're open. When they're open, they're much more fitted, holes that the crowns nestle in. And so I made these for the boxes, and they nestle into each other. The reason it has the lip on the top is on the bottom, there's a protrusion that snaps into the other one on top. So when you stack them, you can tilt them, and one top one won't slide off. So, because I understand retinue are the worst. I mean, they're great, but they're also really tough on things. Well, so it's just like all the hardware is riveted, not screwed, because once again, regalia gets beat up. So all the hardware, I designed all the hardware, and then I had Vryn, Master Sigismund, do all the metal work, but off my designs, and then I built the boxes.
Nice.
So, yeah. And that's actually birch and yellow heart. So that's not paint, it's actually different pieces of wood.
Wow. And
once again, it can get gouged 6 ways to Sunday and still be checkered because retinue. Yeah, so this is a piece I did this is all my mail, but I did for Ugo for a helmet he had, which he's since sold to Sir Philip de Montel. So he's running around with that. I think when your interview with Sigismund, he was showing a bar grill cut laser grill face he made for this.
Oh, okay. This is the one that switches out.
Yeah, so he can have this period face that Ugo made, or the face that Vryn made that's more of a bar grill. But I did all the mail on that one.
Very cool.
And this was that testing project. So I, just getting sick of when I was doing all the research for mail, I was on all these armor sites. And like you're saying, everyone loves to argue on these armor sites. And there was this big argument about, does mail protect against projectiles or not? And then there was this really big book that was published called Night in the Blast Furnace. There was a metallurgist from Reading University in England, that it's this 900-page book that's all about plate armor, and helmets and plate. Then he has like 2 pages on mail, and he makes some conclusions on there about their protectiveness that I disagreed wholeheartedly with, but like everyone kept using it. But like his methodologies were all messed up, in my opinion. And so I wanted to like know for myself. So I said, I'm gonna do my own project. So I did some plate and some coated plates and some mail and some leather armors and some jack coat stuff, and then came up and then researched multiple arrowhead types that were common in the time, and found somebody with a really powerful longbow, longbow, and then did all the math to show that shooting at 10 feet was equivalent energy of somebody shooting at 100 yards, which is the typical range, and like blah, 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 trying to like just justify every decision we made. And then shoot at stuff and see what happens, right? The other thing that we did, which a lot of people don't when they do these tests, is that box you see on the back is a clay body. And I used the Department of Justice has a methodology of how to test modern bulletproof vests, right? They have a whole testing procedure, and it's about 2 things. Is, does it penetrate binary, yes or no? And then if it does stop a projectile, how much does it deform the body beneath the armor?
Right.
Because I can hit somebody with a baseball bat or a sledgehammer that's wearing a male shirt, and it's not going to go through the male shirt, but it's going to kill them, because it's going to deform them underneath the male shirt, right? So it's that kind of methodology, because the Department of Justice wants people to survive, right? Not just not have holes in it, right? And so I thought, well, for lack of a better procedure, I will use their procedures of what's survivable and what's not, and how to calibrate the clay body behind it, how viscous is it, all their whatever. And so all of this was like, this one's a good example. This is the big head I was just showing. It's this arrowhead, the really big like hunting head, and it didn't go through, but man, did it make a hell of a dent. And so while it did stop the arrow, it wasn't survivable. I also had a friend who his whole business was medical imaging. And so I got a bunch of medical images from him to show the actual distance from the outside of people's bodies, typical to vital organs on the inside, like what those dimensions were or whatever. So that was part of it. But either way, so just lots of different armors, lots of different shooting, and then trying to cut to conclusions, which was, for the most part, mail did not protect you unless you were wearing abnormal amount of padding behind it. And so that was the other thing, documenting how much padding is behind it, whatever. And so with a sort of average padding behind it and an average chain shirt on it, that even if the arrow was deflected and didn't penetrate, you would still rupture organs. And so you might not die right that second, but you're not going to be terribly useful, and you're going to die a little later. So yeah, so hence plate armor shows up. I mean, that was always my argument logically. Like, if mail did such a great job, why did it go out of favor? Right? I mean, like, because it didn't do such a great job. Your armor has to follow the things that you're getting shot at, right? And if the late 1200s and the early 1300s taught anyone anything, it was archery is devastating to armies, right? And and a lot of them were wearing mail. So yeah, that was a fun project.
That's fascinating.
This was another full piece I did for Steer Car for his Sutton, which is another one where the mail is actually attached all the way up at the brow of the helmet.
Wow.
Because it has such that big fan in the back and the big cheek plates, I wanted it to look like a coif. And so it actually is a coif. I made a leather cap that fits inside the helmet, that the mail is hung from that cap. So it's effectively a coif where I replaced the dome with a leather dome as opposed to a mail dome.
Oh, okay.
Right? So that it's actually not attached to the helmet. It is a coif inside a helmet, but I took some shortcuts because I didn't he obviously doesn't want mail up against his head, right?
Right.
But it was the only way to make that helmet really sing as far as the silhouette and the layering that needed to happen between the mail and the helmet. But that was a lot of work because that was a lot more mail. I mean, you think about it, it comes up to his eyes,
Yeah,
like
that's
around
a
the
lot.
back. So it's a lot more, it's like twice as much rings. But that one was from scratch because it was really the only way to do it. And that was the other one. And that one just mounted off the back because that's just an SCA cool helmet. So it's just mounted off the bottom. But I did that piece for him as well. That is Sir Justin's helmet, another one that Master Sigismund was showing in his talk with you. But that was an Indian piece that I did the mounting and everything on, and trim and whatnot. Yeah, Sir Einar's. That's another one. Did the trim and the mounting, and
it's really beautiful.
Yeah, and that one we were trying a new thing where we actually came over the top of the bar grill, and then the bar grill's trying to look like a bit of a face, but have the mail hit on the fake face the way it's supposed to hit on a real face. If he was wearing a helmet, which I think it turned out to be a good illusion for that, as far as your sort of 20-foot rule. Like I think it strikes a good period flavor.
Silhouette, yeah. I think it's good for sure. Then we're gonna get back to structures.
Yeah, that was Finn's vigil space for his for Pelican. So yeah, we made just this little room. I mean, you're virtually standing right at the entrance, so it's just this little like cabin. But
that's not a ceiling fan, is it?
No, they're cross beam lights.
Okay.
So they're the classic, cross beam with the candles on the four sides. I love this. So those are LED candles on the four sides, but what you don't see is in the face. If you're looking straight down at it, I routed this zigzag pattern in all the arms and laid in LED rope lighting through the whole thing. So the whole X throws light up.
Nice.
So it looks like the candles are providing everything, but the whole thing is a light fixture. So your husband would be very proud of me for my light fixture shenanigans, but I had a lot of fun building my light fixtures.
He would. How come he doesn't make cool stuff like that?
Well, it was
fun.
Don't
answer that.
He does make some pretty cool things.
He does. I'm being.
So that's my little house again. Yeah. Which some people see there's another one out there, which is Steer Car has one. He built one from my set of plans. He built his own version of it. He wanted me to build.
Yours has more like directional wood.
Yeah, his is more vertical pieces. It's the pattern's a little different, and he has like an awning window, and I have the casement thing. So he changed some details, but he wanted me to build him one. At the same time, he was asking me to be his head of retinue, and I said, "You get one or the other. You get. I can build a house for you, or you can be your head of retinue. Pick one." He's like, "Well, I can build my own house." I'm like, "Well, there you go." And then afterwards, he's like, "That was a lot more work than I thought it was going to be." I'm like, "Yeah, exactly." Yeah, it took him quite a bit of time to build his. But
you're smart. I ended up doing a full costume and being head of retinue.
I got that. So I was like, "No, you gotta pick one. I'm focused on a thing. Let me focus on a thing." Yeah.
That was a smart move.
That was, yeah. So this is another one, Merowyn's Knighting. It was another one where it was in a hotel. And I said, "Merowyn, you're too important to the family and to me and to our friends. We really want to celebrate it. I want to make something for you. Like, will you let me go to town?" And so I did some sketches, and she's like, "Are you serious? You're going to build a pavilion inside a hotel room?" I'm like, "Yes, I am." So we actually paid the hotel to remove everything from the hotel room.
Oh, wow.
The bed, the desk, the chairs, everything. So this structure is right up against the window in the back, and it's about a foot. It has about a foot clearance, about 6 inches on either side, and it took up about 3/4 of the hotel room. So when you came into the hotel room, you're in the sort of narrow part with the bathroom on your left, right? And then it opened up into this space.
Wow.
And we lit it all, and I made this faux fire pit in the middle that was twinkling lights. in like coals and stuff. That was super fun to make too. And brought in furniture and the whole bit, and it was great. She did her vigil in it one night. We did a party in it the second night. It turned out really good. But it's bits and pieces of my Lego set, and a few new pieces added, and a few new pieces of canvas. Saying Megan made all the canvas on this one as well.
Did Susanna borrow that fire pit for
and the structure for Sunjohn's vigil?
Okay.
Yeah, you know, so I set this up for Susanna's boyfriend Sunjohn as well for his vigil, because I like Sunjohn, but I'm oathbound to Susanna and I wanted to help her. So it was mostly for her, and Sunjohn totally knows that. And I love him. He's a great guy, but you know, you don't want to overstep somebody else's squire, right? You know, so.
Right.
But I really enjoyed the way that turned out. It was a good, once again, trying to find a way to make a hotel room be transportive and make you feel like you're not in a hotel and you're not inside and you're not in the 21st century, right? Like, how do you really do that? And I was super happy with how this turned out for that.
Yeah, mission accomplished.
Yeah, that was fun.
Oh,
so this is my knight's chain, the one I'm wearing, but I wanted to show a good image that really gets into the detail of the rings. I mean, this is the thing that most people don't see in, you know, riveted mail, but that are certain, you know, the flattened ring and the way the dome is composed and the fact that it's a wedge rivet. You can see in the upper left, I'm going to do because I do this at work all the time.
Okay, good.
This thing right here, that's the back of the rivet, right? So it's a diamond shaped rivet. So the back is flush, but the front is domed. And so, yeah, so this was just a good, and then this is my maker's mark on this one too, my little Matthias Bane. So, yeah.
And I've never seen it that close up before. I've never noticed.
Most people don't, and this that's why I took this picture, you know, to have in documentation stuff so people can really like zoom in and see. This one also has this added detail called the watershed effect. So you can see on the overlap how it looks like a little roof, that the overlap is actually crimped and it slopes away from the rivet head, right? There's like a little ridge that runs right at the top of the M and the B. I don't know if you can see that.
Right there.
Yeah, there's like a ridge right here. And that slopes down. That was a detail that was added right at the height of the mail age. That in my theory is it's added to keep the ring from scissoring, from the two overhalf laps of pivoting and shearing the rivet off.
Oh, okay.
You know, so it locks them in. Now it's a theory, and it's actually one of the projects I'm working on right now, really dry. But I'm making all sorts of different rings of different details, and then I'm testing them to breakage in both axes to prove my point of that a round ring changed to a flat ring because it made it stronger, and a wedge rivet changed from a round rivet to make it stronger. And I want to have quantifiable data that shows that gives me data that shows why did details change over time, because details they kind of get more and more complicated as mail becomes at its height, and then as plate develops, they get less and less complicated as mail becomes less and less important.
Right.
And so I want to do a little research project to show the science behind that. So really, it's about 8 people will find it interesting, but it's I'll get a kick out of it.
I think it's fascinating.
Yeah. But it's the science end of the arts and science, and not a lot of people do that sort of pure science research, and
right.
I like that end as well. So it's sort of my follow up to the archery testing one to like flesh out more of it. So this was that nighttime picture. It's kind of dusky picture, but still with all the torches going. This is a Sport of Kings.
I remember the first time I saw this lit up at night. I've had maybe 3 or 4 transportive experiences in my 25 years in the SCA, and this was one of them, and it was because of your work.
Oh, thank you. That was the point of this one, is we should be in a room together in a hall experiencing court. And it also forces people to sit closer together, which is another weird thing because it has boundaries. So it like pushes people together, which also makes the space feel more interesting, and it makes a defined aisle, which makes it feel good. Like there was a lot of things it did well that I was really pleased with. If we had longer events, I would set it up more often.
It's a lot of work. So there's the inside of your house.
Yeah, the bed doesn't have the bed on it, but yeah, this is the inside.
So amazing.
I love living in this thing. It's I go to events sometimes just so I can be in my house, because I love, it's a space that I love to be in, and I only get to be in it when I go to events, right? So it's another special thing for me for events, right? And it feels like architecture. It doesn't feel like a transient pavilion, which I love pavilions and I've had tons of them, but this one feels more like a building to me, right? And that makes me smile.
Yeah. I feel the same way about my yurt. My husband keeps talking about how he wants to find something that's easier to put up, and
yurts are one of the hardest things to put up. You should build a house. That's what I'm saying.
No. I love your house, but I love the laying there and looking up at the sky through the roofing.
Yeah. No, yurts are great. I mean, and they are very much, I mean, and that the reason they feel more like architecture is because people lived in them 24/7.
Yeah.
And so they were more like architecture. They had to solve different problems than a pavilion did. A pavilion, by its nature, even in period, was a transient thing.
Right.
And so you can put up with some grief and some inconvenience for that transient ease. But the steps folks, they were living in those things, and that was their home. And so it had to do different things, right? I love yurts. I just was never my period. So
one of the best things, I don't do heat very well, and you lift the walls up a little bit and you get that airflow coming through, and it's cooler in the yurt than anywhere else.
Yeah, this one's the same way. The triangles all pop out really easy. So like we take this top triangle over the door out, and like even those side triangles, they fold in half so they can open up. And then you saw the other picture with the back window that opens up, and we can take that top triangle out either. Like I've been at events that were in the 90s, in this thing, and like taking naps during the day. Like it's actually really quite comfy.
That's awesome.
Yeah, no, I'm saying that was a big thing for me, is it's gotta be comfortable when it's cold and when it's warm. It's actually a great house when it's cold as well. So,
I bet.
Because it's not very big. Yeah, so these are the Summits thrones. People have probably seen them. They're dark now. They had a mold incident a few years ago, left outside for too long. So those cushions died, and they sanded it down and stained it dark to hide the staining, which was whatever. Like, it happens, but that was a little bit of a gut punch. But yeah, these were sort of built to go with the big box thrones for the Antir, right? So a similar vernacular to those, but slightly different imagery and slightly different proportions. And they're shorter than those were, and they have the peak on the top to represent the summit, for the summits, the mountain, whatever. So there was some imagery, but then they all pack down into the box and get carted away, and they're still around. So
it's pretty cool. There's nothing quite like sitting in court or just even seeing pictures of an event you weren't at and seeing regalia that you've made up there being used.
Yeah. No, I'm glad they've definitely got there. I think I built those in 2003, 2004, somewhere in there. So I mean, that they've been going a good long while, which is I'm thrilled about. So I think the ones they had built before that lasted a year, because they were just too. They relied too much on retinue being nice. Those thrones are burly, and they're a little heavy, but they're burly.
Right.
And you can knock them about all day long, and so be it, right? And that's why they're still around, right?
That's an important feature.
It is, because retinue's tough on regalia.
And then we're back to some.
Yeah, it's a piece I did for Sven. It was actually I did it for Sir Roland, who was making this helmet as a gift to Sven. And so I did the stand and the mail so that he could present it to Sven when he stepped down as king many years ago. But that was a fun piece. That was one of the first pieces I did, actually. Like a whole piece that actually went out into the world. That was a helmet that Vryn made for a guy named Grimar. Doesn't play so much anymore. And that's Phalan's. Did that one last year. Nice. Another Vryn helmet. Lovely piece. I bartered that for a carved piece of stone that Phalan's still working on. Like, one of those sort of Norse carved stones. So I'm a big fan of bartering as opposed to money, just because we all make cool stuff and I'd rather get cool stuff.
Yeah. I don't like doing work for money.
Yeah.
I don't know how to price my stuff, and
I feel the same way.
There has to be an element of love for the work and love for the human that the work is going to, for me.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Because you kind of can't pay us enough to do what we do.
Nope, not anywhere close.
So there, I said it. So this is another configuration.
Yeah, that was the same setup where you had the picture of steer car with the whole cord in it. Same event. Yeah. The one I was carrying the orb in, same event.
And then
this is the Basilica. This is a July coronation where I set the Basilica up for steer car step up. He wanted something special, so this is what we gave him. And then I took this photo. This is me standing on a chair with my camera up in the air, like doing the whole super. But I did it really quick and then got down. But it's also the image that's used for the Shiv list page. Has been for years, and which makes me smile.
This image is all over the place, and I had no idea that you took this photo.
Which is why I'm not in it, because I took it. I made the space and took the picture, and I love that Stiarna's in it. That she's in the corner. Like, that was really important to me, because I kept saying, make sure you're far enough forward that we get you in the shot. And no, I love this picture. It's the best one I've seen. Not to pat myself on the back, but I also spent a lot of time thinking about this picture, preparing for this picture. Like, I was on a chair with a camera on a stick. You know what I mean? Like, I was to get as high up as I could and frame it with the arch. Like, I mean, I spent a lot of time futzing on this picture to get it. But because I love this moment, and it's very so on tier. And I love being in this moment all the time. And most people don't see it, because all you see is the back of all the big burly dudes and whatnot. Right. So it was.
I kind of wish that the queen would go up and have her hand on the back of the king.
Some do, yeah, some do, and some don't. Some have a hand out. She didn't want to do that, but I just said, make sure you're in the shot. Like, I just want you to, we talked about this shot quite a bit before we did it, because I knew I was going to have a moment. Like, we weren't going to be able to pause the world, right? So I had this moment I could take it, and I also didn't want to be standing up and behind this thing and ruin everybody else's moment. So it was it got in, I stood up, I snapped off 15 pictures, rolled, just rolled a bunch of pictures, came down, and then spent some time post, cleaning it up and working it together. Had to do a little Photoshop shenanigans because somebody was standing in the crowd I didn't like, whatever. But that's how you get a good image. And then as a gift, I had a big giant one printed and framed for Steer Car.
Oh.
So he has it up in his house.
So spoiled.
Well, it's like you said, you do the work for the friends you love, and I love these two, and I would not have done that job for a stranger.
Right.
I mean, not a chance. I don't mean the photo. I mean, head of retinue. This is whole head of retinue time too, right? It was this whole same thing. But he's a good friend of mine. I love him, so I wanted to do something nice for him. So, and this was his first coronation too, right? So that's his first moment of experiencing that too, right? So that was important to document.
Did we see this one already?
Yeah,
Okay, sorry.
no, it's all right.
And I just thought this was funny. I don't know what you're doing.
I
But
don't know. I'm
having
gesturing
fun.
with something and making Susanna laugh. That's really my job as a knight.
I know I said it before, but I really, really love her. She's
She was great. A little fun fact: the building I set up for Merowyn for her knighting is where we decided to be knight and squire. Like we were at the party the next day, hanging out in that space, talking and just sitting by the fire, as it were. Fire was there, sitting by the fire, talking, drinking, and hanging out. And that's when we decided to make plans to take the oath. So yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Very cool. Great. So that brings us up to now.
Yeah.
What are your future plans with the SCA?
I'm still fighting. So I'm gonna fight until I can't. Sigismund and I are working on a new fencing helmet for me because fencing is fun. So it's gonna be a represade image of, it's a represade example of my face as a fencing mask under a hood. So it'll be me, but perfed sort of fencing mask face.
Wow.
Thing. So that's in the works. So that's going to be super fun. That I've been having fun collaborating with Vryn on. I have a few projects in the works. Like I said, I'm doing that testing, science, research a bit with the mail. I was contemplating entering Kingdom A&S again. So I'm sort of planning some projects. That's one. Another one is I went down this rabbit hole of researching the tools of the trade of period architects.
Oh, cool.
Right, which just seemed like really, it's like a square and a compass and a measuring rod, like little simple stuff. And it is turned into this huge bit of research. Like to make a square, right? A square, I had to design a whole building because as I find out, the squares are built for the buildings that they're designed for. So they have certain proportions. The like normal squares are two parallel lines, right? It's like a bar. But period squares, the inside right angle and the outside right angle aren't parallel. They represent angles, and those angles have to do with vaults and the stones you have to carve for those vaults as a guide. So you need to know what vault you're going to build to know what square you're going to do, and you need to know what building the vault is in to know what square you're going to do. So I had to design a whole tower house for myself as a Viscount in order to know what the vault is, in order to know what the square is, so I could build a square. So that's the kind of rabbit hole world I'm in right now. Of I wanted to build a freaking wooden square to be like, look, architect square, and it's turned into this huge freaking thing, which is hysterical, and it makes me giggle every time I sort of get into it. So that's turned into a whole project, like all the tools. I'm going to have like a representational model of the building, like I'm selling it, selling it to somebody, drawings as they would be, like I was presenting to a client as what an architect or master mason would have done in period, and then all the tools associated with that. So it'll be a big display because I should know these things because that's what I do for a living. So I should know my history. So that's sort of where that started. But it's turned into, I thought it was going to be this little funny lark of a project. Really what it turned out is I wanted a square, I wanted a compass, and I wanted a rod so I could do one of those photographic, here's the period photograph of a effigy of an architect, like on their stone thing. And then here's my modern equivalent, like with the clothes and the thing. And, you do the side-by-side thing. That's really what it started as. I wanted to do that goofy, like, here's a picture of this architect on his stone effigy, and here's my version of that. So I'd make the right clothes and make the tools. But I'm like, because I'm a Laurel now, and you can't just build something, you have to research it first. I did that, and that sent me down this crazy tangent, swirling thing of research, but I've been really having fun with it. So that's one of them that I'm really just about done with the research end, and I can about to start doing the building part. And then the mails project, and then I'm super fascinated with clocks all of a sudden, like period mechanized clocks. I don't know why. They fascinate me. I'll tell you why. It's a stupid reason, but there's a show on Netflix. I'm gonna get a period here. There's a show on Netflix called The Repair Shop. It's this British TV show about this crack team of really talented artisans that repair old sentimental or ancient things for people and bring them back to life. And one of them is a clockmaker, and I just love his work and like how passionate is he about it, like how I've been fascinated by watching this man. So I've been like that was really cool. I wonder what period clocks are, and so I've started to research that and buy books and read and like maybe I can make a wooden working clock that I could have at events, so I don't have to have my cell phone, right? Which is the other motivation is I don't have, like, how do you tell time at events? Like everyone has their freaking phones, and I'm a big fan of like unplugging and not having that, but I do like to know what time it is because I want to be at whatever I need to be at. So I thought, wouldn't it be nice to have a little, about yay big box clock, that's wound and it's period and it tells the time and it chimes when it wants, and it chimes the hours and all the things that period clocks do. So I'm in.
My brain just went down a rabbit hole of you wearing that around your neck like Flavor Flav.
Exactly. It'd be pretty freaking big, right?
On your night's chain.
Exactly. Well, Olin, I have precedent. Olin does that quite a bit. So, but yeah, so that's another one. I've just started scratching the surface of learning, which surprise, surprise, complicated is all get out how clocks work.
Yeah.
And not well documented period clocks. I mean, they are, but not like the inner workings so much. So it's going to be a challenging one, but if I could figure that out, that'd be super fun because it works with my woodworking skills and my research skills and just the figuring stuff out bits. I mean, I don't think it'd be a terribly hard thing to build once I know what I was doing was right.
Right.
But it'd be meticulous to build, but I don't think terribly, skillful, I mean, it's not like it's going to be technique wise very difficult to build. It's really more the brain power that's going to be the difficult part. So
that's fascinating.
Yeah, so those are the things that are on my page right now, and then just generally making my armor look better. I have new chain greaves now that I got working that go over all my foot and my shins that have external spurs that look appropriate with period shoes.
But does it hang from a strap around your knee, or? It's
mounted to a leather greave that then has buckles that go around the back.
Okay.
Which I can document. So yeah, it stops just below my knee armor. In fact, it helps hold my knee armor in place.
Oh, that's cool.
So I mean, it's how I use leather greaves right now, so it's similar in that construction, but but then they go over the foot and they tie underneath they tie under the sole, so it's tied, which I have good documentation for too. It's a great statue on Chartres Cathedral of a knight on one of the upper statues, and he's on a little plinth, but his feet hang over the plinth. They actually stick out, so you can see the bottom of his feet, and you can see that the mail comes to the bottom and then is tied across his, so you're actually walking on the laces.
Oh, wow.
Super cool. Yeah, so it's just like that. So like even if I'm on my knees and my foot slipped up, it still has a good image, right? So I'm trying to like
it looks good.
That's part of fighting, right? Like I want to make it all look good. So yeah, I'm trying to iron out the bits of unperiod that are visible in my kit, because I take that part of my job as a Laurel and a knight seriously. I'm supposed to fight well, but at the station I'm at in this game that I love and we play, I should be setting an example of what period fighting looks like, right? So,
right. Well, and you have the Lion's Torse too, which is our period armor thing. So you got to live up to that.
Indeed, yeah. So did Susanna, my squire, which is one of the reasons I took her on as a squire, because she Sport of Kings, not this last one, the one before that, she won best armor out of the 160 people that entered that tournament. And it wasn't because her armor was fancy.
Mm-mm.
It was because it was consistent. Like every piece, like she really inspired me to like fix the few pieces that weren't right. even though I have some pieces that are spectacular, like if you don't have everything up to a certain level, one detail can throw the whole
It drags everything
thing off.
down.
Exactly. And she was just like consistent shoes, pants, ties, thing, and the shield and the sword, and like everything was like bang. And which is why, yeah, she ended up winning that.
She's portrait perfect in a lot of ways.
She, well, and because she thinks about this kind of stuff, right?
Yeah.
Which and so does Finn. Like, and he's working on his kit, trying to make it better. Like everyone said, the people around me, Luciano was the same way, and had all that plate armor and said that's not enough, and ended up etching all of it. Like it's all of it's etched now, and like crazy, like because it's, they understand that how we look affects the experience that other people have in the world, and if we're focusing on fighting, then people should look at you and be like, I want to look like that. Like that should be a sentence that people say about you on the field. Of all different styles, right? Of people out there, but everyone should have someone that says that, like, oh, look at that. I want to look like that. I want to, add to this community in that way, and that's, I think that's important. But yeah, all the people that are close to me share that affinity. I mean, obviously Megan included, right? Obviously in a different way, but
Yeah, absolutely.
but that that helps with our transporting moments, right? Like if we're all wearing t-shirts and sneakers, we're not going to have those moments.
Yeah, the cowboy boots and jeans are not going to cut it.
They still happen from time to time, but they're not helping anyone time travel, right? I mean, like, and that's, I take that responsibility seriously, that it's, as a peer, my job is to help others time travel and have those moments that I've had that I cherish, right? I mean, that's what this game is to me, is having those moments where you do lose track of what the date is. And they don't happen a lot, but they happen often enough that it's worth coming back to try to find new ones.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. I mean, like the Perfect Period Feast, the one that you showed the picture of, Finn, that was his event. Like he put that on. I mean, I love that about the people that I'm close to, is they want to make those moments for themselves and for others, right?
They share that passion that you have for that.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I mean, that's to some degree, and obviously I take it to a different part for me than other people do, but it's why we're all in this game. I mean, that if this was just about fighting, we'd be HEMA. We'd show up in our jeans, we'd put on our sport armor, we'd fight, we'd put our jeans back on, right? It's not about that. It's about having moments of learning and forgetting what time we're in and experiencing something that's not experienced other than having a community come together and build something that didn't exist. There's not many groups like that other than the SCA, and that's the thing I love about the SCA. Which is why I said, even when I'm broken and I can't fight, find other things to do. I mean, the SCA has plenty of things to keep me busy, so I'll
lots of rabbit holes to go down.
Oh heck, there's so many.
Well, we are pushing 2 hours now.
Oh, there you go.
Thank you so much.
Super fun.
Is there anything that we haven't covered that you really wanted to talk about?
No, I think that's all good. Yeah, I appreciate you pulling the pictures together, and that was great.
Yeah, thank you
really
so
enjoyed
much
myself.
For your time. I did too. I miss you, and please tell Celeste hi. And
I will. She's just in the other room. I will go eat dinner and say hi to her now.
Give her a big hug. I miss her so much.
We miss all you too.
Yeah.
Here hopefully soon. Come spring, we'll all get in a field and time travel again together.
We hope.
That's my
all right.
hope.
Thanks everybody for coming by and watching. Tomorrow my sister and I are interviewing Duke Vahalric, and I'm probably mispronounced that. So that's something to look forward to. And then next week for Laurels, I have Gala Eriksdotter, who is she does a lot of Norse singing. She's amazing. So that's going to be super cool. And then Rifkin and I are interviewing Ari Usni from Aitenfeld, who's a Pelican Laurel, who's does some really cool work. So that's going to be fun too.
By the time this pandemic's done, you'll have interviewed everyone.
Oh, I don't know. So many people.
You guys are ripping through. You're doing so many. It's great.
It's getting me through. It's a total godsend.
I was looking forward to this for weeks, so I really appreciate it. It was a lot of fun.
Thank you so much. Good night.
Yeah, good night.